Hey everybody, welcome back to the Guitar Slinger Hockey Channel. I'm going to be bringing you a review today on the CCM AS3 Pro hockey stick. This is a stick that I believe gets zero love, and it's a highly underrated stick out of all of the sticks that have come out since 2020, 2021, and I'm not sure why it's so underrated and why no one likes it. Now, there are definitely some sticks that are out there that people will try, and they're like, this isn't working for me, or whatever the reason is. But this has an interesting story, as does the uh, CCM Ribcore 80K hockey skate. That is also an interesting story about why no one seems to use this stick or those skates. I will obviously focus mostly on the stick in this video, but if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I have the ability to try out everything that comes out new. So, for example, some of the new sticks that I've already had a chance to use and try out, and this is, as I'm filming this, it's July 30th of 2021. I've already used the True Catalyst, the Bauer Hyperlight, and the new Warrior Alpha LX. I've had the opportunity to use those, and I'm on the docket to try out the new Trigger 6 Pro when it comes out too. So I do have the ability to try out a lot of really cool cutting edge things. Pretty much before a lot of people do. And so I like to be able to bring that kind of information to the table and tell you what my initial opinion is and why. And, you may not agree with me, you may not, shoot pucks the same way I do, and that's totally fine. But I will give you a little bit of my perspective on things as much as I know it. And, right now, the way I see it, this AS3 Pro SuperTacks is a highly underrated stick, but it's not because it's a bad stick. The interesting thing is that I think the marketing is maybe pushing people away from this stick because, typically speaking, you might try, let's say you go to the store, you buy a stick and you try it and you're like, you know what, this stick isn't really resonating with me, I don't really shoot it that well, there's other things that I shoot better, blah blah blah, and so you move on to something else. That's a perfectly valid reason why you should try something different. You shouldn't force yourself to stick into a particular piece of equipment for any particular reason. But if you go into a store and you look at a stick and you're like, well, I don't like that because it's yellow, or it has a camouflage pattern on the shaft, or I don't like it because it says the words "power is everything," or somebody says, "Oh, quick release is the future of the game." You're probably doing yourself a disservice on what you choose. And the other thing is, if you can tell a difference between kick points and curves, um, then you have, that's a really important thing to focus on for you. The people I've never really understood are the people that say it doesn't matter. I can't really tell the difference on a curve or a stick, a kick point. However, at the same breath, on the other side of the mouth, they're saying that, well, I'm never going to change my stick or my curve or flex or anything like that. Well, if you can't tell the difference, why wouldn't you just try something different until you can tell the difference? I don't know. That's I digress. So, anyways, when I look at this stick, the sources that I go to and ask them about this, I'm asking them, hey, listen, are you seeing any abnormal breakage patterns with this stick? Are you seeing, people like buying these and then returning them, or what do you like? Why are these sticks unpopular? Because these are definitely an unpopular stick. If you watch the NHL, you will not see a whole lot of people using this stick. Now, of course, you don't know what they're really using when you're watching them on TV because everything's painted a different color. They could be using something completely different. I think most of you know that, and pro stocks are nothing like the retail stuff that most of us get. But, there aren't a lot of players that I see either in rec hockey or youth hockey that are using this. And the times where I see them using a retail model SuperTacks, you have the traditional defenseman that's using it. And because of the words "power is everything." And if you didn't know, this is basically a mid-high kick point stick. And so, when I talk to my sources about this, what they're telling me is that this is actually the most durable of the CCM lines that came out. So what that means is it's more durable than the Trigger 5 Pro, and it's far more durable than the FT3 Pro. By the way, I think some of you know this, but the FT3 Pro jet speed had an abnormally high amount of breakages when you compare it to the respective numbers of sticks that were sold. So I think those sticks sold, I think they sold a lot more of those sticks, but compared to you know, other years that, respective numbers and all that good stuff, there was a higher percentage of breakages to the point where people just stopped buying them in the area that I live in. And I think that was a smart choice. These things are expensive at $300. So those had an abnormally high breakage amount, but the CCM and the Trigger 5 was, a durable stick, but the SuperTacks has proven to be a more durable stick. So that is something to consider. The other thing is, why don't people seem to like these? Are they just not, people don't find them to be useful stick, or what is it? Well, here's the deal. You can't say that people don't like them because the majority of people aren't even trying these sticks. And so much so that the stores in my area are actually only keeping them available as a demo stick that you can special order. And the same is true about the CCM Ribcore 80K skates. Well, of course, now it's going to be the 100K, and so that could be a completely different story. But up until the 100K skates, no one carried the Ribcore skates for the most part because people don't understand that they're actually a more agile and comfortable boot than the SuperTacks boot or the Jet Speed boot, believe it or not. It's just there's just a lot of marketing around the whole one-piece boot thing, and I think a similar thing is going on right now with the sticks, where the Trigger 5 Pro is a very a quick releasing stick, and I mean, meaning the puck comes off the blade really quickly, and the Jet Speed's a very versatile stick, but doesn't really excel at anything. So, um, I'll tell you now. So I've been actually using this particular AS3 Pro stick for about 2 months now. I've been playing 3 to 4 times a week with it. And I'm also going to roll in some other sticks because I think that sometimes people will look and say, you know what, you haven't used this, that, or the other thing. So I'm going to show you a couple of other sticks that I personally own and use on a daily basis. So let me transition to those. Okay, working our way from the bottom to the top, we can see that at the bottom we have a CCM Trigger 5 Pro, followed by the SuperTacks. Then we have a True AX9 and a Bauer Geo at the top. And then I'm going to roll in this next stick here. Okay, finally we have the True Project X. So this was a stick that was a limited edition run, as I think most of you know. I did use this for a while, and I think that this is probably my least favorite stick that I've used in 2020 and 2021. All I will say about it is that it feels like you're just holding the shaft of a stick with zero blade. And in addition to that, the blade is kind of rubbery. And so when you take hard shots, it kind of flexes open on you. And the shot sucks and the accuracy is terrible. But ooh, it's light, which means nothing to me. Okay, so just kind of looking back at these 4 sticks again, these are the 4 that I ended up keeping. The Project X is long gone. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of other sticks that I tried, but these are the 4 that have stayed in the arsenal, so to speak. And before I start really getting into the SuperTacks and why I went that direction, I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about my feedback on the Trigger, the True AX9, and the Bauer Nexus Geo, what I think their strengths are and their weaknesses, just so for you to think about. So, with the CCM Trigger 5 Pro, I do personally believe that that stick has the quickest release of any stick that's ever been released up to this point in July of 2021. We may see something that comes out, soon. I don't know, maybe the Trigger 6 can dethrone it, but for right now, the Trigger 5 releases the puck extremely quick. And I think that's a good skill that it has. The stick is very well balanced for as light as it is. It has a great feel to it. I think what I would say about and it seems to be fairly durable too. I mean, I've had this thing for months and months and months, and it seems to be holding up okay. Um, I think that for slap shots and one timers, it sucks. I wouldn't use it for that. I think it's probably the worst. It's definitely the worst one for that on out of these four sticks. So if you take one timers and slap shots, you won't probably like this stick. I would also say that it's not really a great stick for shooting from the blue line or the top of the circles. It is actually pretty, the way they market it when they say it's like close up range for quick releases, like high slot or lower. I do think that is actually pretty appropriate for that stick. I've struggled with it a little bit in on the top of the circles and at the blue line because I do play defense about half the time. With regard to the True AX9, I think this is probably the most well-rounded low kick stick that exists. So it's not going to release the puck as quickly as the Trigger 5, but it is definitely the second quickest releasing stick that I've ever used before. It is another highly underrated stick. It has the absolute best puck feel regarding passing and receiving passing of any low kick stick that's out there. You can actually keep passes hard and flat if you want to do stretch passes with it. It has a pretty decent one timer and slap shot based upon how the base of the blade is at. There's like this little 45-degree angle, and I don't know what it does, but it makes saucer passes and slap shots, one timers, that stuff seem pretty like easy compared to the Trigger. And it has a really good weight to it. It's I think 493 grams. People are like really obsessed about sticks being as light as they can. Light sticks pretty much suck, guys. I'm just gonna lay it out there. You really have to be able to finesse the puck well if you're gonna use a stick that's super super light. Like if we start going much lighter than the CCM Trigger 5, which is like 360 or 70, I don't know what it is. The balance is going to have to start getting incredible on sticks and the blade feel. Um, so just keep that in mind. So the True AX9, probably one of the most durable sticks out there. It has a very nice feel, maybe not quite as nice feel for stick handling as the CCM Trigger 5, like not quite as a quick stick handling, but it's a good all around stick, has a fantastic wrist shot. It's more accurate than the Trigger 5 for sure, and the reason for that is because of the stiffer blade. It has a consistent stiff blade, whereas the Trigger 5 has a diving board style blade on it, which gets the puck off faster but less accurately. So just keep that in mind. So that's the give and take. You can release it quicker, which is why you want to be closer to the net. It releases it quicker, but it has a little less accuracy to it because of the diving board effect. So you want to be a little closer to the net, or you might have a tendency to shoot the puck wide or high or something like that. Then moving on to the Bauer Nexus Geo. This is probably the best feeling stick with regard to passing. Um, of all four of the sticks here, really, it's got a very dampened blade. It's very easy to stick handle. It's got great feel, great control. Stretch passes are really easy to do with this thing if you're a defenseman or if you're somebody playing wing who's got more of a traditional shot, using a mid kick. This is a great option. I don't feel like it's a hybrid kick point like like the old Nexus were, like the Nexus 8000 and such. I think it's actually more of a mid kick. It has a pretty decent slap shot to it. Not as good as I would have thought it would have had, but it has a pretty good one. The shots, for some reason, stay pretty low with this shot, with this stick. It's a little bit, it takes more effort to elevate the puck to pick a corner. But I guess that's pretty good if you're taking slap shots from the point or wrist shots. So the way I would look at it is pretty accurate, pretty well balanced stick. It doesn't excel at anything though, except for maybe the stick handling and the pass receiving. I mean, it's easier to receive hard passes just holding on to to the stick with one hand. So it's good for that. One negative about it that I don't hear enough people talk about is that 5 sides that it has. I don't know, that spine on it, whatever. That actually sucks. So, and here's what I'm saying about that: when you're playing the game, and you get sweaty and your gloves are kind of wet from ice and whatever, you actually have a tendency to accidentally roll the shaft in the palms of your hands when you shoot the puck. And I have noticed that happen a number of times, and I've had a couple of my buddies try it, and some of them haven't noticed it, but others have noticed it. So keep in mind, I don't necessarily think that's a great design having that 5th side on there. It's not it feels ergonomic when you're holding it in the store, but when you're in the process of playing a game or taking a slap shot or anything like that, it isn't staying locked in my hand for some reason. So I would kind of take that into consideration when you're looking at it. But it is a solid all-around stick. So I guess kind of before we dive into why I went to that route, I'll just say that the trigger, again, summarizing, is going to give you the quickest release with the least accuracy. The Bauer Geo is going to have the best stick handling, best passing, but doesn't excel at anything. And the True has the best balance of everything: shot accuracy, power, release speed, all that good stuff. So I actually like the True AX9 the best for an all-arounder. But if I'm just playing forward and I'm going to be doing a lot of my work in front of the net, I'll take the Trigger 5 Pro all day long. So, for what that's worth. Okay, so let's get into the SuperTacks. Okay, so first things first, here are the specs that I chose. So for the majority of my playing career, I've been using a 70 flex or 75 flex P29 or P92, depending on Bauer or CCM, whatever. So P29. So for the SuperTacks, I moved over to the P90 TM. So if you don't know, that is CCM's. It's basically as close to a pro stock Jamie Benn curve that you can get. It is a combination of the P29 blade with a P28 toe and with a little bit taller blade than a P29. The reason that I went with these specs is because the CCM SuperTacks series of sticks, especially starting at the AS3 Pro before this, had the stiffest blades that's ever been created by humans on the planet of Earth. So when you get a stick like that, it makes it very easy for hard passes to bounce off your blade and sometimes over your blade. So I wanted to come up with a way to remedy that. Now I'm going to make a completely different video about this curve, and that's going to be probably the next video I make after this one. But what I will say is that this curve, it works. It did what it was supposed to do. I'm going to be sticking with this curve. But anyways, these are the specs that I chose for this stick. Okay, so why did I even bother trying this thing out if no one is interested in it? Well, when I found out that no one was trying the stick simply because they just weren't buying it, it's not like it was a bad stick and it's not like they didn't like it. It was just because they're like, oh, that stick is like stupid looking and I like quick release because CCM says I should. That's really the answer that's going on. But the bottom line is everybody wants to score goals, but no one really, not everybody shoots the same. So I started really taking a look at how I was playing the game, how I was shooting, where I was shooting from on the ice, and where I was having success. And so what I ended up noticing is that I take a lot of hard wrist shots from the crossing the blue line and cutting across and taking a wrist shot, or something in the high slot. Somebody will pass to me, and then I'll take a wrist shot or a snap shot. I'll take slap shots from the point, but rarely do I ever take a one timer, but occasionally I do. So I have a very well-rounded arsenal of shot types, but I tend to take those shots from closer to the blue line because that's just, the people that I play with and against are skilled players, former college, former pro. And, even though we're all old and fat now, we've all played decent levels of hockey at some point. And so you don't really get that many opportunities. And so I've just found myself shooting from those general areas. And a lot of my goals that I get would come from me taking a wrist shot between the feet of a defenseman and using him as a screen, and 5-hole in the goalie. And I don't get a lot of goals where I walk right in and I pick a upper right corner or anything like that. That's just not the kind of skill level that I have. I'm not a dangler. I don't have super fast hands. I'm pretty conservative, but I have really really good at passing, really solid like accuracy for saucer passes and things like that. And so I started looking at my options, and I first started taking a look at the jet speed, but I knew that thing was fragile as heck. Plus, from my chances of shooting it, it felt kind of blade light, as well as it didn't really excel or excite me on how it shot. Not bad, but I'm still kind of on that same level as the Nexus Geo to me, except for the Geo has a better feeling blade. Um, and so I just decided to look at this thing because I have used the SuperTacks AS2 Pro in the past, and I liked the shot power of it, but I eventually went away from it because the blade was so freaking hard that a lot of pucks were hitting the blade and bouncing off. And so I avoided this stick, the AS3 Pro, for a long time because I was just like nervous of that. And the same blade that is on the AS2 Pro that was on the AS2 Pro is on the AS3 Pro. Same blade. And so I was a little bit nervous about that. So, um, but after a amount of time passed and realizing where I was scoring from and how I was shooting, I'm like, you know what? I should probably give this AS3 Pro a shot, but with the caveat that I use the P90TM blade. Again, I'll make a video on that blade and see how that feels. And so, the very first time I brought that stick out, I just lit it up. It was exactly what I personally needed. It's the kind of stick that allows you to pick a corner from the blue line without having to send it like way high, like the Trigger or the True AX9 or that garbage Project X. It's not that bad. I'm just hating on it a little bit. What I will say though is that it was a stick that allowed me to have such good accuracy for how I shoot. I'm definitely a power shooter, and so when they say power is everything, I mean I hate the marketing on it, but it is truly a powerful stick. And then guess what, guys? The AS3 Pro. We want to talk about quick release. Is it as fast as the Trigger 5? No. Is it as fast as a true AX9? Sure is, about on the same par with that. And guess what? The true AX9 is not that much slower than the Trigger 5 Pro. And one of the things that I would tell you is that the Trigger 5 Pro, since that has the quickest release on the market today, it's easier to beat a goalie like a blocker or a glove. But with the AS3 Pro, you can actually hit the blocker or the glove of the goalie and there's enough power behind it that it'll kind of knock it out of the way. You know, as obviously as long as they don't get a full blocker or full glove on it. But if they kind of nick it, you'll actually push it out of the way and still hit your target. Whereas with a trigger, you know, it's releasing off the blade quicker, but there's not as much miles per hour behind it, if that makes sense. So you can kind of power through the blocker or the glove with the AS3 Pro, whereas you have to actually beat him with speed with the Trigger 5. That's kind of what I've noticed on it. So this has kind of enabled me to knock goalies' pads out of the way a little bit from the blue line, which has pretty much impressed me. I've also noticed that the blade choice that I used on this stick, the P90TM, has completely made this a passing beast. It's because of the taller blade, and it's not a max height blade like on a Bauer, because those are actually pretty blade heavy. It's only a little tiny bit taller, which is just enough that it makes it really easy to control hot passes. So that whole bouncy blade or blade being too hard, that sort of thing that I experienced in the AS2, that's more or less gone because of the curve that I'm using now. So basically I get all the benefits of a stiff blade from a shooting standpoint with very little of the negatives that come along with having a blade that's too stiff. So it's a great pairing for this stick. Regarding the slap shot on it, you know what? The AS2 Pro had a slightly better slap shot than this one. But I mean, if you gotta think about it, this one has a pretty decent slap shot, definitely better than those other sticks that I was showing you. I'm trying to think if there's a stick that has a better slap shot than this. You might get one out of the Bauer Ultrasonic, but this one is still close to it. But from a standpoint of wrist shots, there's just nothing that can compete with the AS3 Pro. This thing has the hardest, most accurate wrist shots I've ever used in my life. It's amazing, and the stick is so well balanced that I can't imagine moving from this stick anytime soon. Um, and so that I would consider it if you guys are looking for something, not to discount it. Like if you really do know yourself well enough and you're like, well, you know what, I'm a low kick person, then sure, that's fine. But if you're kind of, you know, waffling, if you've been using Bauer products, if you've been using literally any Bauer product, you would feel comfortable in this AS3 Pro. I'm almost positive of it. Bauer, True, like you'd be comfortable in this stick. It wouldn't take very much time. But again, I think that the main reason people aren't buying this is just because they're not, or the main reason people don't like this is just because they're not buying it. So there's not really a basis for them not to like it. So if you can try one of these out and, you know, get it on the ice and see what you think about it, I have a feeling that you might like it. I would stray you towards the P90TM blade. Really on any CCM stick. I think that's probably the best curve that's come out in a long time. Again, you'll see this video released before I do a review on that curve, but there are some nuanced differences between it and the P29 and P28 that I think you guys will all like. And I'll give you a little hint. If you're a P29 or a P92 player, you'll like the P90TM. End of thought on that one. Everything you like about that curve, this does it better. So anyways, this is really the video that I wanted to make. Not a whole lot of other things to say about it. Maybe I'll just touch on the True Catalyst, the Warrior Alpha LX, and the other one. What is it? Oh, the Bauer Hyperlight really quickly. So the True Catalyst actually feels fairly similar to this SuperTacks AS3 when shooting, but it's a little bit lighter. I'm still leaning towards the AS3 Pro though. I think this is a better stick. The Warrior Alpha LX feels very like meh. You know, it feels kind of like a DX to me. Yeah, it's just meh. Doesn't look that great. Feels okay. Probably excels at nothing. master of none, that kind of thing. But it's a decent feeling stick. The Bauer Hyperlight is I think, a vast improvement over the Flylight. That one, but it's not in a shooting capacity. It's actually in a balance capacity. So it's going to have better puck feel, better stick handling, and it might give you a little bit better of a shot. But I think I noticed it mostly in balance and puck feel. So if you're looking at that kind of stuff and you're interested in that, you could give that a shot too when they come out. But for right now and today, the AS3 Pro is the best stick on the market, period, in my opinion. If you have to get yourself into a low kick stick, then you should go Trigger 5 Pro. If you're looking to do a little bit of both, like you do have some slap shots and one timers you take, really try to find yourself a true AX9. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised with that. It's a fantastic stick. It's so underrated and awesome. I don't know why people don't seem to gravitate towards that one either. I think it's probably another marketing thing, but it's the best all around stick if you kind of tend to go to gravitate towards low kick sticks. So, but anyways, I hope this was a valuable review for you. Again, highly recommending this stick, and don't overlook it just because it has lame camouflage pattern near the butt end of the stick. So anyways, until next time, peace and thanks for watching.